Human beings in the West Savannah need each other in order to survive. In today's modern society, people need protection from other people too. Was the first to acknowledge that. So if we agree that this is one of the first fundamental functions of society, we should in fact reject any human behavior that goes against this theory. So it's true Beethoven was a rude and vulgar person, who probably suffered from the bipolar disorder. Van Gogh lost his mind. Other artists can be labeled as eccentric, antisocial, or even estranged from society. Nevertheless, as long as they don't cross over the line and breach the basic human contract, we may savor and rejoice the art and creations. This is why I am able to enjoy Beethoven's magnificent creations. Yet on the other hand, as a daughter of Holocaust survivor, I am unable to listen to the music, magnificent as it may be, of composers who believe, for example, in the final solutions of the Jews. An artist that breaches this contract, that endangers the freedom and safety of member of society, regardless of the religion, fate, beliefs, or background, by a direct action, and this is very important, only by a direct action, should lose his place in society, together with a privileged platform, of which he presents his creativity and art. And along with this, the power we attribute to it. Unless he regrets his action. Yes, apology can be accepted. And I did. There is a lot of research on loneliness, and all of it is horrifying. Loneliness won't just make you miserable, it will kill you. I'm not kidding. Chronic loneliness increases your likelihood of an early death by 14%. 14%. Loneliness causes high blood pressure, high cholesterol. It even suppresses the functioning of your immune system, making you vulnerable to all kinds of illnesses and diseases. The main problem we have isn't an issue of actually doing the work, it's just starting. Starting is the hardest part. So how do we make it easier? Take your large task and break it into something small. Once you think you've made it small, make it even smaller than that. Do the same with your time commitment. It's great that you blocked out the next 3 hours to do work, but guess what? Studying for 3 hours is incredibly daunting. You do not want to do that. You want to watch Med School Insider's YouTube videos instead. Here's how you get past that: you're not studying for 3 hours anymore. Instead, you're studying for only 25 minutes, which is a lot easier than 3 hours. After those 25 minutes are done, you're getting a break, guaranteed. Seems simple enough. This is the Pomodoro technique in action, and it is one of my favorite study hacks. Early on in the day, I generally like to knock out the difficult tasks first, since it makes the rest of the day a breeze. When Tim Berners-Lee invented the World Wide Web, he surely didn't anticipate that children would end up becoming some of its main users. Most start using the internet at the average age of 3, And as recent research shows, children now spend more time playing and socializing online than watching television programs. Given this change in habits, it is not surprising that a recent House of Lords report has raised online safety and behavior as an important issue. The report said that for children, learning to survive in a world dominated by the internet should be as important as reading and writing. The House of Lords Communications Committee also warned that children should not be leaving school without a well-rounded understanding of the digital world. It also suggested that the government should think about implementing new legal requirements and a code of conduct companies would have to adhere to, which would help to bring the internet up to child-friendly standards. The idea behind recycling is simple: by breaking old products down and converting them into something usable again, we conserve natural resources. It saves forests, cuts emissions, and means less pollution. Sadly, it's not that simple. Recycling is deeply entwined with our economic system, and right now doesn't make much economic sense. It often costs more to recycle than it does to just throw things away, which is bad news for the environment. So is it worth paying for? Recycling saves serious amounts of energy, which in turn means lower greenhouse gas emissions. Making cans from recycled aluminium uses 95% less energy than mining and using raw materials. Recycling steel saves 60%, as does recycling paper, so it boils down to how quickly we're able to remake the way we make things. As of 2018, we were tracked to generate waste at more than double the rate of population growth through 2050, so we can expect plenty more rubbish to pile up. Fish are important because they help maintain the health of marine ecosystems and provide support to other marine life. They are an important part of the food web because they are predators to smaller organisms and prey to marine mammals and seabirds globally. They also support humans. About 80 million tons of fish are harvested annually. This volume is enough to feed all Filipinos with their annual fish consumption for 20 years. And there are currently about 60 million people working in the fishing industry globally. But on a global scale, 33% of fisheries are overfished, meaning too many fish are being harvested. This may cause fish populations to become depleted and not able to recover. 67% are fully exploited, meaning additional fishing effort could lead to the fisheries collapse. Only 10% have room to grow, with just 10% of the fisheries having a room to grow. We might experience a global fishing crisis. David Olivia Garcia is a co-host of New Mexico in Focus and is also the managing editor for the New Mexico Independent, which is an online news site. He says that the internet has some great benefits for journalism. The internet is this new, amazing medium. Not so new, it's been around quite some time now. But it's maturing as, among other things, a place for journalism. In a sense, the internet allows you to tell stories better than in a newspaper or on television. For this reason, you can do it all online. You can have the written word, you can have still photographs. You can have video. You can link and kind of connect to the other journalism that has been done on a given topic. So it's not like you're in a vacuum. The internet has had a negative impact on these papers. However, John Fleck, who is a columnist for the Albuquerque Journal and also has his own blog, says that he doesn't think that's entirely the case. It really makes me more efficient as a journalist in terms of information gathering, confirmation, helping me get the background necessary to write a story. So it's really good for that. I am going to talk today mostly about what I do as a curator here at the National Museum of Australia, but I want to draw some generalities from that in terms of a series of curatorial practices, tools, techniques, and methods that I think could be of interest to your students and to you in developing extension history courses. I want to talk about what I do as a curator and then from that also talk a bit about the kinds of history that I think museums are particularly good at creating and communicating. I think this is something I would really like to discuss because it is not necessarily very well understood is that I think museums, as Dave insisted by putting up my quote in his slide, create a very particular kind of history. It's not the kind of history that gets created in books or in dating films or in compositions. It's a very particular kind of history that grows out of the fact that museums are centrally interested and defined by their collections. I should say that is not an uncontested view of museums, but it is certainly my view of museums. Curators try to understand material culture as evidence of other people's lives as a means to try to understand other people, what they look like, what they did, how they made a living, what they hoped for in their lives, how they tried to construct their world and why they made particular choices. One way in which curators differ from other historians is therefore in terms of how we interrogate the past, what elements we use to communicate the past. Most academic historians are trained very much in the discipline of words, and they concentrate on words still today, although it is changing a little bit. If you go through university history, primarily you are encouraged to draw on things like archival accounts, manuscripts, and now oral histories, and most of that work is actually promulgated in the form of books. There are also other kinds of historians. Obviously, filmmakers and photographers concentrate on creating images of the world and arranging them in meaningful sequences, but curators attend to objects. We look at objects as evidence of the past and try to arrange objects in meaningful ways, called exhibitions. What's the literal definition of risk? Business schools use risk analysis. So, what do you mean by risk? And we need a dictionary. When you look at dictionary, this is literal definition of risk. What it says is, the definition for example, the possibility of injury, a dangerous element or factor, chance of, degree or possibility of such loss, and so on. So, risk has two parts, as you look at the literal definition of risk. One part is the consequence of some kind of particular danger, hazard, loss. And the other is about the probability of it, chance and consequence, okay? And then at least just as English language concerns, when you look up the word of safe and safety, which you'll earn as, it's a little bit of a loop, a little circular argument that free from harm or risks, secure from danger, harm or loss, the condition of being safe and so on for all. And why we take out of it? At least when we talk about safe, at least in English language, we are talking absolute something is safe, or it sounds safe. Socialism, the word invented in the late 1810s, communism, the word first appeared in 1840. None of these things were words, much less ideologies before the French Revolution, and the French Revolution gives birth to much of the modern political world. Have you not wondered why we refer to the political left and the political right? Does this have any inherent bodily signification? No. Left and right in politics comes from the original designation of the deputies who sat to the left of the speakers. Podium and those who sat to the right of the speaker's podium in the National Assembly of 1789 to 1790. The left were those who were seen as progressive wanting to change, the right were seen as those wanting to conserve elements of the old regime. It's time for this young loggerhead turtle to go to work. We can tether turtles in these little cloth harnesses, put them into this tank and dull swimming place. University of North Carolina biologist Ken Lohman studies sea turtles that are programmed from birth for an extraordinary journey. Mother turtles bury the eggs on the beach and then return to the sea, and the eggs hatch about 50 to 60 days later. Support for the National Science Foundation. Lohman is learning how these reptiles use the Earth's magnetic field to navigate a 5 to 10-year journey around the Atlantic Ocean. The turtles seem to inherit a set of responses that tell them what to do when they encounter specific magnetic fields at particular locations. This animal magnetism can be a lifesaver, and one field off Portugal triggers the turtles to turn south. If they don't, they likely die. Swept into frigid North Atlantic waters. In one lab test, turtles responded to magnetic field similarly to what they would encounter off the coast of Florida. The great majority of them turned southeast. This is an exciting finding because southeasterly orientation in this part of the world would presumably take turtles further into the Gulf Stream. So, the turtles actually have what might be considered a crude global positioning system that is based on the Earth's magnetic field. And check out this experiment. Tissue engineering, what is it? It's an emerging field, interdisciplinary field that combines engineering and life sciences to create functional biological structures that can restore and improve tissue function. Examples include bladders, trachea, blood vessels, and if you look at it, printing as a technology has also gone through the revolution, and well, it's been around for hundreds of years. In the last couple of decades, it's been a new dimension. We can now print layer by layer in materials ranging from plastic to metal, to concrete, to chocolate. From the smallest scales to the largest. If you take 3D printing and we combine it with biology, we have bioprinting, where the building blocks are cell aggregates where we called bioling particles that are composed of thousands of cells that can fuse together into different shapes. These geometries can include multi-layered sheets, such as skin, branching tubes for vasculature, and the sophistication of this manufacturing technology improves daily to include different cell types and different shapes. And now, why is it important? The pharmaceutical industry at the moment is in a moment of crisis. It spends more money each year on R&D, but has fewer drugs to show for it. It takes more than a decade, more than $1 billion to develop a new drug, and the cost of a failure can be measured in hundreds of millions of dollars. Canada is a country of the enormous natural resources. It is the world's largest exporter of forest products and a top exporter of fish, furs, and wheat. Minerals have played a key role in Canada's transformation into an urban industrial economy. Alberta, British Columbia, Quebec, and Saskatchewan are the principal mining regions. Ontario and the Northwest, NWT, and Yukon territories are also significant producer of uranium and potash, the third largest of asbestos, gypsum, and nickel, and the fourth largest of zinc. Oil and gas are exploited in Alberta, off the Atlantic coast. And in the Northwest, huge additional reserves are thought to exist in the high Arctic. Oil price is making extraction profitable at a growing number of the country's deposit. Canada is also one of the world's top hydroelectricity producers. Telescopes and eyes are both tools for collecting and detecting light. In fact, telescopes can be thought of as bigger, more powerful eyes. The type of lenses and mirrors and their arrangement determine some of the features of the telescope. The resolution of the telescope is a measure of how sharply defined the details of the image can be. The telescope's primary mirror may have a fraction. As a result, starlight is not brought to a focus at the same point, resulting in blurry images. The name telescope covers a wide range of instruments. There are major differences in how astronomers must go about collecting light in different frequency bands. The telescope is widely used in the astronomy field because it is a digital detector, 100 times more efficient than our eyes. Now physicists have begun to develop a various quantum mechanism. The Right Honourable Sir Winston Leonard Spencer Churchill, KG, OM, CH, FRS, PC, November 30, 1874 to January 24, 1965, was a British statesman, best known as Prime Minister of the United Kingdom during the Second World War. At various times a soldier, journalist, author, and politician, Churchill is generally regarded as one of the most important leaders in British and world history. Considered reactionary on some issues, such as granting independence to Britain's colonies, and at times regarded as a self-promoter who changed political parties to further his career. It was his wartime leadership that earned him iconic status. Some of his peacetime decisions, such as restoring the gold standard in 1924, were disastrous, as was his World War I decision to land troops on the Dardanelles. However, during 1940, when Britain alone opposed Hitler's Nazi Germany in the free world, his stirring speeches inspired, motivated, and uplifted a whole people during their darkest hour. Churchill saw himself as a champion of democracy against tyranny, and was profoundly aware of his own role and destiny. Indeed, He believed that God had placed him on earth to carry out heroic deeds for the protection of Christian civilization and human progress. A providential understanding of history would concur with Churchill's self-understanding. Considered old-fashioned, even reactionary by some people today, he was actually a visionary whose dream was of a united world, beginning with a union of the English-speaking peoples, then embracing all cultures. Theater study is a difficult subject in the academy because it cannot be experimental and it is a mixture of literature and personal life experience. Theater should show pure lives, although there will be new actors or directors. It is also a collection of different skills such as writing and singing. To succeed in this subject, you need the knowledge of linguistics, sociology, archaeology, physics, psychology, and philosophy. Theater study is interdisciplinary, and you need to be a linguist and archaeologist to fully understand theater study.